The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Things I did not expect to be talking about in the first show of 2026 versus the first show of 2025. Commanders playing a meaningless game, only trying to avoid a second 4-13 season in the last 3 years. I did not expect to be talking about Indiana as looking like the favorite to win the national championship in football. I certainly didn't expect that. And I didn't expect that this would be a year where we hope that the Commanders can get back to where they were last year, or is it just going to be more of what we had through the end, whole run of Dan Snyder's reign of terror? Whew, I don't know. It's a very strange feeling as this begins, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on Indiana, and I feel like I'm entitled to that. I paid that school a lot of money for my son to go there, a 2013 graduate, and I mean, it's just to think about football in Indiana is remarkable to me. I remember when I brought him there for his freshman year, we went to that's how long ago it was, 2009. We went to Sears in Bloomington to pick up some things for his dorm. And the guy at Sears who was helping us, I think we had to buy a mattress and a couple of other things, and maybe not, maybe it was a dorm. But anyway, there was a guy who was kind of helping us there, and I was Indiana student, and he said, what do we think about the basketball team this year? Now, the basketball was bad at that point. Tom Crean had taken over as the coach, and they were rebuilding. Kelvin Sampson, this is a quaint notion too, Kelvin Sampson, who's turned out to be an outstanding coach now at the University of Houston, got fired at Indiana for breaking rules. You know the rule he broke? Too many text messages. Yeah. Now you can pay these guys $1 gazillion. In those days, if you sent too many text messages and they caught you, you were out. So he was out, and the program was overhauled, and it took a couple of years to get on track. Before he graduated, he got to see some really good basketball, the two Sweet 16 appearances, and then in his senior year, Indiana basketball made it to the Sweet 16 here in D.C., where they played Syracuse. And unfortunately for my son and his buddies who drove in with them from Bloomington, they lost. They lost to Syracuse, and they went back to Bloomington disappointed, and even more disappointed on graduation day when he had to leave. He loved it there. So over the years, he's gone back for a number of basketball games, and when Indiana basketball has played like at Maryland, he's made it a point to be there, even when he was coming down from New York to see the games. And now he lives in Seattle, and if Indiana plays a Big Ten game at Oregon, he's going to be there for sure. But he never expected that this would be happening, that the football team not only is in the playoff, it is in the Final Four, but of the teams left, they look like the favorite right now. They're the highest seeded team, obviously. They're number one. They're the only unbeaten team. But you got a 6 seed now in Ole Miss. I'll get to them shortly. A 10th seed in Miami. And Oregon, a 5 seed, who they beat at Oregon earlier this year or in this season. And they're going to meet them on a neutral field in Atlanta. I just don't know what to think. And if they get by Oregon and they look like they'd be favored to do it, I haven't seen the odds, but I would imagine, especially the way they played yesterday, that they would be favored to beat Oregon, and then either Miami or Ole Miss. Miami looks really good. Their defense was awesome against Ohio State. They were tremendous defensively. And that could be a good game against Ole Miss. But if they beat Ole Miss, how about that? A 1 versus a 10. And Miami, of the 4 teams left, is the only one that's won a national championship. And that was back in 2021. The others are all, Ole Miss, I guess, won a share of it back in the days when, segregation was going on. I think it was the early 60s. The last time that they had a share of the national championship might have even been the 50s. And, Indiana's never been close. In fact, this is the first Rose Bowl they played in since 1968. And Oregon, while they've been good, they have not won a national title yet. And they're kind of new money, too, because they got the Nike money. That's really when they stepped up to be a college football power. So it's really incredible. And I'll get to the Hoosiers and what they did yesterday to Alabama. But the game that fooled me, I like to go to bed early. And at the end of the half, where it's 21-12 with Georgia, team that's used to winning in this space, this type of situation, knows how to put people away, had come from behind earlier in the year to beat Ole Miss, looked like they were ready to put them away. They're up 21-12, and then there's this incredible blunder nearing the half. Now, this is as good as you can call it. I mean, this is really good. A.J. McCarron, the analyst, Sean McDonough, play-by-play, Molly McGrath down on the sidelines. This is a minute 7 of broadcast perfection over what was an incredible blunder by Ole Miss.
They're running in the field of play. They don't get the first down, and they can't spike it because it's 4th down. So they're trying to run the field goal on this. Is a disaster. Terrible clock management. Joe Judge responsible for managing the offense, with Charlie Weiss Jr. calling the plays. That was absolutely not what Pete Golding could have happened. Daquan Wright stayed in bounds, didn't get to the line to gain. Zion Branch, Zachariah's brother, made a huge tackle. No points when it looked like they were already in field goal range.
Daquan Wright's got to know the situation there. You cannot run back inside. You have to get out of bounds. Get what you can get out of bounds. Give your kicker a chance. He catches it right here. Go get 4 or 5. Now you got
bounds
right there outside. Said he turns it inside, and it costs him 3 points.
Here's Molly McGrath.
Coach, what are your thoughts on the clock management at the end of the half there?
No, I mean, we're trying to run a blood play out of bounds. Obviously, kick the field goal, kick cut back, could have been in a bad position.
Can't do it any better than that, the broadcast booth. Great call by Sean McDonough, pointing out the stupidity of the running back not getting out of bounds. A.J. McCarron with analysis. Boom, down to the sideline. Molly McGrath, reaction from the coach who screwed it up. That's great broadcasting. You can't do better than that. That was just tremendous. And I'm thinking at that point, okay, Ole Miss has got this new coach and Pete Golding. Yeah, it was fun to get this far, but they're in complete chaos because some of Lane Kiffin's assistants who have gone with him to LSU are still coaching, have gone back to still coach Ole Miss. So, time to check out and time to get some Z's. Well, that was obviously a mistake because the 21-12 halftime lead quickly turned into a 34-24 deficit with 9 minutes to play in the game. Now, Georgia did come back. Gunnar Stockton threw an 18-yard touchdown pass to Zachariah Branch before there was a field goal with 55 seconds left in regulation to tie the game, but Ole Miss was able to win it on a field goal, and now they move on. And they move on against a Miami team which was not expected to win at Texas A&M, was not expected to beat the number 1 seed in Ohio State, who most of the people I listened to said look like the overwhelming favorites to repeat as national champions. But they manhandled them defensively. And now we've got that matchup with not an interim coach. Let's keep that in mind, that Pete Golding is the permanent head coach. He did not even have to, go through some kind of a trial here where they decided whether they were going to keep him or not. Once Lane Kiffin was out the door and the school took his clothing rack from his office and put it out on the street, and they said, no, Pete Golding's the head coach. And Lane Kiffin goes, the players wanted me to stay. And the players said, no, we didn't want you to stay. If you were checking out on us, we're checking out on you. We're going with Pete. They like Pete. They played hard for Pete. They came from behind for Pete. And they wind up winning this game to move into the Final Four. This was Golding talking to Scott Van Pelt last night about what they accomplished.
Yeah, I just think the resiliency, the competitive character, it's been all year. Their toughness, they love to compete. They love to play football. It's a group that has a lot of grit, man, and they really enjoy playing together. And I've said it all along. I just don't think they're tired of playing football yet. And I think that's a big part of playing in the playoffs. And these dudes want to keep playing and create the legacy of this football team, and it's a really neat group.
Pete, I've gotten to know Kirby over the years of doing this, and I know what he appreciated most about his group is the exact same thing you just described, competitive grit. They've demonstrated it over and over this year. They're like the guy in the horror movie, man. They're hard to kill. And when you've got them down and they tie you up, right? I mean, you know somebody's going to have to make a play. What's the mindset? Because you guys ran it on first down there. Were you guys – I was wondering what that last series was going to be like.
Well, we told them at halftime, it was kind of reverse roles from last time. I was like, look, we were up 9 points on these guys going into the fourth quarter last time. I said, let's take one play at a time, one possession at a time. And when we do things right and we execute correctly, we're hard to beat. When we don't, we're not. And we didn't execute very good in the first half, and we didn't take care of the football. So coming out in the second half, I thought we were executing better. I thought we were playing more physical up front on both sides of the ball. And then we know in the fourth quarter, regardless of how long we play Georgia, they're going to come run the rock at your ass in the fourth quarter, and you got to be able to stop them. And in some of those situations that you think they should be throwing the ball, they're not going to, because that's their identity. And, they always do a great job. They don't go away. Kirby does an unbelievable job, and hell of a call on the fake punt, to get them back into it too as well. So just credit to our guys.
There's a cliche in sports that you either win or you learn. And what I appreciate most about you, Pete, is I think you're as real as they get. And I don't know if that cliche makes sense to you. So I'm almost apologizing for asking the question this way. But what'd y'all learn in the fourth quarter? What'd you learn in the fourth quarter in Athens? Because you had them down and then they scored 17 and you scored none. Was there something you took away from that football game?
Yeah, I felt like it was on us as coaches. I'll be honest with you, as me as a coach, I didn't feel like I did a good job rotating enough guys early. We were tired. We were dead. I put too much on too many guys, whether it's front tools or BTFs and things like that, and it just got too big for them. And that wasn't their fault. That was my fault. So we came into it and said, hey, look, we're going to have to play some more players that can play winning football, because these dudes want to do it the right way, and they're going to play with toughness, and they're going to play their ass off. So we just got to do a better job coaching them.
You guys have kept the main thing, and nobody outside your room will know what it took to maintain the focus, right? We all understand you had a coach, and he's going to coach somewhere else now, and now it's your gig. What, Pete, as you thought about it, by yourself, alone, knowing what was coming, what was the main thing you wanted your guys to know about what this team this year still had in front of it?
I think this is a unique opportunity when you get in the playoffs. We made the playoffs when I was Division II and won AA, and the opportunity to continue to play. You're playing every game for another game, and that's really exciting to me. And we've got some guys that are playing really good football towards the end of the year that didn't even start for us in the beginning of the year. And they've got a lot of opportunities to create value for themselves for their next contract. And so we got a lot of guys that just love to play football. So I wasn't worried about if we could put some good plans in place and we could hold them accountable throughout the week and make sure they stay prepared and we practice extremely hard, that we'd be okay. And, we made a lot of mistakes tonight. We didn't leverage the ball well. We didn't tackle very well. We turned the ball over. We did about everything you could to get beat, to be honest with you. But they found a way to win. And that's what good teams do, especially in these playoffs. And hopefully we'll continue to do it.
Pete, I know a fellow in Oxford that owns a spot called the Library, and it doesn't have a lot of books, but it's got a whole bunch of bourbon. And I'm imagining that they're putting a show on, although I assume everybody's in New Orleans, which is a hell of a town for your fans to celebrate in, too. Just give me your best guess of what tonight looks like in Oxford and in New Orleans as the Rebels celebrate this evening.
They'll probably burn both of them down.
Well, I don't know if you want to say that, but he didn't, I think, mean that literally, maybe figuratively. But anyway, that's a huge win for Ole Miss, and they are now headed to the Fiesta Bowl on Thursday night to play Miami. As for Indiana, they were favored in this game. Let's be clear about that, but not 38-3 favored. I mean, they took Alabama to the woodshed. This is Alabama, and this is Indiana. Don Fisher has been doing Indiana football and basketball for over 50 years. He's the Johnny Holiday of Indiana. He's been on the job long enough to have done 50 years ago the last undefeated team in college basketball, the 1976 Hoosiers. But he hadn't been on the job long enough to have done another Rose Bowl, because the last time that Indiana was there was 1968, and Fisher wasn't doing the broadcasting yet. But this is an opportunity for him not only to do at least one more bowl game, but possibly two more, and to broadcast the national championship, which, considering the football that he's done over the years, which has been, it's been bad. This was, until this year, the losingest program in college football history, the losingest program. And so to be sitting at the Rose Bowl with, by the way, and I heard this from my son who was there and saw some other things on social media, it was like 75 to 85% Indiana fans. Now, it's not always easy to tell from the stands because the colors are the same. But my son was there walking the streets in Los Angeles and saw all the other Indiana fans celebrating this. They showed out. They showed out for this. And to be sitting there broadcasting the Rose Bowl, Indiana football, Don Fisher had to feel crazy.
3rd down and 8. Kalon Black is back in the lineup. Here's the snap back to Fernando. Has time. Rolling over the middle. He's got Becker. Oh, what a catch! Charlie Becker! Touchdown, Indiana!
Yeah, and Charlie Becker's another one of these guys. He wasn't even playing that much until he emerged in the game against Penn State where their season – it wouldn't have collapsed. I think they still would have found a way to get in the playoff, but they might have had to still beat Ohio State to do it. But that took the last-second touchdown pass or last-minute touchdown pass, amazing throw, amazing catch to beat them. And now he's emerged as a big-time player for them. Amazing, amazing. And you just can't say enough about Curt Cignetti, who did something that a lot of guys wouldn't do at middle age. He was making good money as an assistant coach at Alabama. I believe he was making about $400,000 a year. That's really good money. And he was, kind of a college football lifer. And if he finished out his career as an assistant coach with Nick Saban or maybe moved on to another staff, it would have been, okay, that's great. That's a great career that you had as a coach. But he did something that a lot of people wouldn't do in their 50s. He said, I need a shot to be a head coach. So he left. He left the jewel program in college football, could have stayed with Nick Saban as long as Nick Saban coached football there. And if somebody else came in and wanted to keep him, they probably could do that, or he could go to some other level program as an assistant and make that kind of money. And that's a good living. But he said, nope, I want to do this. I need to do this. He went to Indiana University, Pennsylvania, $125,000 a year, which is not, that's not chicken feed, but he said he had 2 daughters who want to go to medical school, and he had to figure that out. He wins there enough to go to Elon. Elon is not going to be in the college football playoff. And then from Elon, he goes to James Madison. James Madison was in mainly because of the foundation that he built there. I mean, they moved on, too, without him to the college football playoff. But from James Madison, he moves on to Indiana. Nobody really gets too excited about that. He's making $4 million a year, which is, good, but not top-notch head coaching money. He says at the news conference, I win, Google me, and people kind of roll their eyes. And now 2 years in, the team is 25-2, undefeated this year, losing only 2 games last year, 1 to eventual national champion Ohio State, and then they lost on the road at Notre Dame, which would, I'm sure, be a tough place to play. Those are the only 2 games he's lost. And so when they were given the trophy presentation after the 38-3 clobbering of Alabama, I mean, this was not a close game whatsoever. Cignetti talking to Reese Davis about what they did.
Well, for a couple of years now, I would say you've been smelling like roses, but now you really are. How would you describe the efficiency, the precision, the discipline that your team showed with one of the best performances we've ever seen on this field?
I mean, this team has been very consistent most of the season, all 3 phases. Got a lot of senior guys, played a lot of football with great character. They're good players, and we've been very efficient. But it's a great win. A lot of respect for Alabama. It's a great program, great tradition. It's a great win for us. And you know what? I'm just so proud of our staff and our players. And a special thanks to President Pam Whitten and Scott Dolson, our AD, for making the commitment where we have a chance to be successful. And it's a great win. And tomorrow will be good. We all got a day off, and then we'll get ready for the next one.
Well, that's one of the remarkable things, Curt, about what you've been able to accomplish. With the way you guys have turned around this program, you keep setting a new standard for the greatest moment in Indiana history. First, it was winning a game like Oregon on the road. Then it was beating Ohio State for the Big Ten championship. Now it's winning the Rose Bowl for the first time and going to the semifinals. How would you describe the turnaround and what you've been able to build in a short period of time?
It'd be a hell of a movie.
Who would star as Curt Cignetti in the movie?
I don't know about that one, but there'd be a big cast of characters because it's all about people. You got to have the right people on your staff, the right guys in the locker room, and we've been very fortunate. And these guys buy in. They all think alike. They play like we want them to play. There's been a lot of firsts. It is kind of surreal. There's no doubt about it. I understand why there's been a lot of skeptics, but I only have one thing to say. Hoosiers!
That is the only point in the day that he broke character, other than smiling when his players dumped rose petals on his head afterwards. That's it. He didn't crack a smile the entire game. And I was thinking about the actors who might play him. Unfortunately, they're all gone, and a couple of them were actually comedic actors. I think Walter Matthau could have pulled this off. He did coach a team as the coach of the Bad News Bears 50 years ago. That's a possibility. I was thinking about Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin might have been a good choice. I think he's no longer with us. And then the other one would be Gene Hackman. And I even a 30, 40-year-old younger Gene Hackman might turn this down because of typecasting. Like, he is the original Hoosiers coach, right? I mean, from one of the greatest sports movies ever made, Hoosiers, and this is similar to this. I mean, he didn't have to put 10 players out on the field because they didn't have 11, or like the 4 players that Gene Hackman put out because they didn't have 5, and he didn't have to convince Jimmy Chitwood to come back and play for his senior year to hit the game-winning shot in the state championship game. But boy, this has a lot of feel to it, and the fan base. Just tremendous the way they showed up for this. And I think a lot of it was, I think Alabama fans were cocky because they've been a bunch of playoffs. And they know that if Alabama would have won, they would have played in the Peach Bowl, which is driving distance to Atlanta. So they were saving their money. Indiana fans are going, well, we may never get back to the Rose Bowl again. And should we save our money to go to the Peach Bowl? Nah, the hell with it. Let's go out and have a good time. And there were stories of people who were longtime Indiana fans breaking down in tears at the fact that they were actually at the game. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And we'll see if it continues next Friday. And it just gets bigger and bigger with every round. Oregon faced a Texas Tech team that had absolutely no offense. God, that was a miserable game. 23-0. Just awful. For all the hype about Texas Tech, defensively they were good. Offensively, totally inept. Oregon's good defensively, and they're going to have their hands full with Indiana. But Indiana is a machine. They're so disciplined, and on top of that, I mean, they don't commit penalties. 1 penalty yesterday. 1 in the whole game. Just absolutely amazing. All right, coming up, Dan Quinn with the last go-round as they get ready to play the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, and what Kliff Kingsbury says about openings that are bound to be there in football. Several teams have already made their coaching changes and have interim coaches, so we'll look at that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Seems to be a new definition in college football as to what facing adversity is, and I'll get to that in about 20 minutes. Meantime, Commanders preparing for the last roundup. The game opened, I think, at 7.5, 8, something like that for the Eagles. It's down to 4.5 because the Eagles have said that they're going to rest all their starters. Now, or not all of them, but there'll be a lot. I imagine Jalen Hurts isn't going to play, but there is still something to play for. Now, the state of the Commanders, they can probably win with backups anyway, but Eagles need a win coupled with the Bears losing at home to Detroit. Detroit is out of it, and the Bears are probably going to be resting people for the playoffs too. So that could bump up Philadelphia from 3 to 2, which would mean 2 home games if they win their first playoff game. So there is a little bit to play for, but it sounds like Nick Sirianni is going to play it safe and rest his players up for the playoffs and try to go in healthy as they can. As for the Commanders, well, they're playing backups too, but for a different reason. Dan Quinn on the status of Marcus Mariota when he announced it on Wednesday.
Doubtful as we sit today, John, but it's still Wednesday. And so, but with this quad, and if he can accelerate and stop and start and do those things, that would be a difference. He's not able to do that today. So let's see what the next 2 days bring.
So sounds like be Josh Johnson. I'm pretty sure that that will be the case. Now, as you look back on this season, the reasons that this team has 4 wins going into the last game of the season, yes, injuries have played an enormous role in that. And when you only had 7 games from Jaden Daniels and he exited 4 of them with injuries, it's a part of the picture. Terry McLaurin missed extended time. They had injuries everywhere. Austin Eckler going out in the second game was a huge loss for them. But you could make the case that this has been a poorly coached team, or you could say because they've had all these backups in, there's no continuity. But here is what UB Brown would call a staggering stat. This year, the Commanders have committed 30 false start penalties, leading to 17 stalled drives, both of which are the most in the NFL. And if you throw in the 21 giveaways on offense, they've been terrible in the turnover margin. They've essentially handed over 3.5 games worth of possessions. 3.5 games total possessions. Like, I guess in an average game, you get like 40 to 50 possessions. That's what they've done with self-inflicted mistakes. Dan Quinn addressing that on Wednesday.
It's between that and the turnover margin for us, I would say, Ben, those were the 2 ires, like that's not quite improved in the way that we need to play winning football. And so I get, and you've heard me say this before, I get when there's a physical foul and it's a grab, you don't like them, but I understand that's a quick call. I thought there was a call on Jeremy Reeves in the end zone the other day. He would do exactly like I would coach him to do, of hitting somebody through the strike zone with your shoulder, and you can still get called for a foul. Like that's just like, man, the game goes fast. Like, how could anybody get every call right? But the ones that we can control at the line of scrimmage, that's a big deal. And we definitely harped on certain ones to go, and Brandon's had a couple in the last, couple games. So those are some things, man, like this, we have to get it right. We worked hard on the cadence piece. I thought, all right, got better, then it went down again. And so it's like one of those things that like always needs the attention. And as far as the turnover margin, man, that one obviously is like the most disappointing one for us, the emphasis of how we want to go after it and take care of it. And that needs a lot of work.
Yeah. Joe Witt has been talking about that for 2 years. Now, we don't hear from Joe Witt anymore because he's been demoted, but he's certainly on his way out as defensive coordinator. And I don't like coaches who talk about, well, we looked at the tape and we saw we were close on this and close on that. Close doesn't count. Everything is close in the NFL. So you got to find a way to get players who are game wreckers. That's what has to be worked on in the offseason. They don't have enough of those. And that's what really creates the turnovers, is the guys that wreak havoc. There have been times that they've had some really good defensive performance. Deron Payne has played well at times. He's been hurt. He got suspended for a game. Javon Kinlaw was a overall good pickup, but hasn't been consistent throughout the year. You got to get that guy who's going to be a disruptor. That's what you're really looking for. Micah Parsons. Like Micah Parsons had 1 sack in the Washington game, second game of the season. If you watch the game, your eyes told you he was dominant. That's what they really have to do in the offseason. So there will be a new defensive coordinator here. The question is, will there be a new offensive coordinator here? We're at that point again with Kliff Kingsbury as the coaching searches go on around the league, and whether or not he will draw some interest to be a head coach and whether he will leave to become a head coach.
I mean, we're going to kind of cross that bridge, when and if we get there. But the focus right now is still just trying to beat Philly. And, I'm really excited to work with Josh one more time. It's been really fun to see an older guy like that, the excitement he has to be able to start these games. Most of the games he's coming in his career, he hadn't had a week of preparation. So it's just kind of been thrown in there and like, here you go get him. So this has been cool to see his preparation and try to see if we can get him out there and play at a high level again.
Yeah, that's nice. He's a 39-year-old guy who's been with a million teams, and if he catches on in the league next year, it's going to be similar situation to here, third string. So fine. Okay, that's your constraint. But it'd be interesting if he is going to wind up, because he's not the hot candidate he was last year. Now, not all of his fault, but this offense has been terrible. It hasn't been good. And so is he still the quarterback whisperer? Maybe. And could he be the quarterback whisperer for Shedeur Sanders? Jeremy Fowler covers the league for the NFL Network, or ESPN, I guess he's with ESPN, and he was on the Rich Eisen show, and he talked about the possibility that the Browns' job may be open with Kevin Stefanski winning, 7 games over the last 2 years, and other possible openings around the league.
That's certainly a team to watch right now, along with Las Vegas, what they do with Pete Carroll and a few others. I would say with Cleveland, they haven't made a firm determination yet with Kevin Stefanski. That will come after the season, after Sunday's game, and they'll go from there. My sense right now is that General Manager Andrew Berry should be safe. I mean, we'll see what happens. Can't say for certain, but he's been operating as a GM who looks comfortable with 2026. His draft was done with 2026 in mind. He's been working on extensions with players and things like that. So we'll see what happens there. But as for Stefanski, it's interesting because he actually would be a viable head coaching candidate if he's available. You look at jobs like the Giants. I think he could be involved there. It's a weak candidate pool, but at the same time, in his particular spot right now, you're 7-26 the last 2 years. That is tough to overcome for any coach. So even though he's really well liked there, it seems to be the momentum shifting toward a potential change here. So, we'll see what happens in the next 96 hours. But right now, it's certainly one that's up in the air that we're all trying to find out what happens, along with 3 or 4 others. You got Arizona, Miami. I mean, a lot of these they don't have full clarity yet.
Jeremy, there was a time where a guy like Marcus Freeman would immediately jump at the opportunity to coach a team like the New York Giants. How surprised were you that he ends up staying at Notre Dame, and where do you think the Giants turn from here?
Yeah, I actually wasn't too surprised on that one because I just heard that he was pretty faithful at Notre Dame. He's got a good setup there. I think there's some intrigue with the NFL, but it didn't get too serious from what I understand. No interview requests or nothing formal. Now, if he would have put his hand up and said, hey, I'm interested in the NFL, let's talk, that would have changed. I do think multiple teams would have requested, the Giants being one. So I'm not too surprised. He's a guy who could have options in the future if he wants to go the NFL route. His game is tailored for college, and the way he can run things at Notre Dame is a good setup for him. It's interesting because some of these college coaches are more intrigued by the NFL now because you have, NIL and you have the transfer portal, and the college game is harder. So I still think you'll see some names that could surprise. We'll see what happens with like a Steve Sarkisian in Texas. Does he get involved in the NFL? Because he's got pedigree. He's coached for the Falcons and Raiders in the past. So NFL background. So we'll see what happens there.
Things will happen quickly. Monday is Black Monday. It's hard to believe we got here this quickly, but as soon as the games are all wrapped up on Sunday night, and I guess, it's not certain that the 2 coaches who are going to coach in the last game of the season, Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, are going to be back. That's a big question. I don't think it'll be an outright firing for either one, but it could be, time to move on. Now, Andy Reid did get fired in Philadelphia. He did, and both these are comps. Although both of these guys won Super Bowls, Andy Reid never did in Philadelphia, just got a team there and lost to the Patriots. But I would think that there is that possibility, along with a number of other things around the league. And then, then you get to the Lamar Jackson question. If Harbaugh is out, is that going to be a deterrent with that situation? Because he's due like $70 billion next year. They're going to have to renegotiate or spread out the deal and give him an extension. But somebody who comes in there either thinks, oh, I can handle that, I can turn him around, whatever's been going on here, I'll be able to do it, or gee, I don't want to step into that hornet's nest. Ravens are a good organization, and they don't fire coaches. Brian Billick and John Harbaugh comprise 25 years, 30 years? Yeah, I think they do. I think it's close to 30 years. I think Billick started in 1998 or 1999, at least 25, 26 years. So there is that stability, but that's something that people would have to weigh. All right, coming up, more on the Commanders as they get ready to close out the season and the incredible story of Indiana football. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So be honest, last time you were on the Beltway or a major road like 95, when's the last time you drove 55? If you drive 55 now, you're going to get run off the road. But 52 years ago today, the President of the United States signed a bill mandating a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit across the country. Yeah. It lasted legally for a while. Realistically, it lasted about 5 minutes. We'll look back on that. And how about them Hoosiers? Wow. How about Indiana football, which looks like the best team in the country right now? They didn't just beat Alabama. They kicked the crap out of Alabama, which is a stunning thing to think about, that if you would have said 5 years ago, oh, in the Rose Bowl, Indiana is going to play Alabama. Oh, well, that must be an odd circumstance that Indiana got in. I mean, how did that happen? I mean, Alabama, Nick Saban, Alabama, this ain't Nick Saban's team anymore, and boy, they didn't look like it yesterday. We will get to that shortly. That is just one of the most stunning things that I've ever seen. And I take the totality of that, too, because it's not just what happened on the field yesterday. It's how it got to that point in a nanosecond. Like Indiana football, I saw this with my own eyes. I went to games with my son against Big Ten opponents. They were not playing like Indiana State early in the year. They were playing Iowa. They were playing Illinois, teams like that in Big Ten games. And their tailgates were legendary. It was across the street from the stadium. So I guess technically they were allowed to have alcohol there since it wasn't on school grounds. I guess that's how that worked out. And I saw girls with handles, not with love handles, but bottles with handles, as in vodka bottles and whiskey bottles that had handles. That's how big they were, and they were drinking out of them. This was wild stuff. And then you get close to kickoff, and everybody would leave, not to go to the game, go back to their dorms. Yeah, because it was Indiana football. Nobody cared. They were going to lose. They stunk. Terrible. They made a bowl game some years ago. I enjoyed that. Went with my son. Played Duke, two basketball schools playing in a baseball stadium. It was the Pinstripe Bowl, and it was a really good game. Indiana lost, close game, field goal game. I think they missed it at the gun, which would have sent it to overtime, and Duke won. But yeah, it was the Pinstripe Bowl. The coolest thing was being at Yankee Stadium. Place was half full. Nobody cared. To have filled the Rose Bowl with mostly Indiana fans yesterday, and my son was there with his frat buddies. They spent the money, and they went out there and they met up. They live in various parts of the country. One lives in Nashville, one lives in Texas, one lives in New Jersey, and my son lives in Seattle. They all met up in Los Angeles and went to the game. And if you follow me on Twitter at AndyPolin1, you'll see I put up a picture of it. And they must have had the time of their life. This was just and to think about this, even with the success that Indiana had, where they lost only 2 games last year, one to eventual champion Ohio State, and the other at Notre Dame, which went on to play for the national championship. Those were the only 2 losses. This year they come in undefeated, yet the view is, it's Indiana, and they're playing the bluest of blue bloods in Alabama. Alabama's history, not just with Nick Saban, but going back to what Bear Bryant did in the 60s and the 70s, man, that's the university of football in this country. You used to think of Notre Dame that way, but Alabama has taken that spot, and you have the greatest coach of all time in Nick Saban and 1A and Bear Bryant. I think each of them had 6 national championships at Alabama. Saban won another one at LSU. I mean, that's royalty. And that's why, even though Alabama was a 7-point underdog, you kind of thought of it in the way of Gene Hackman bringing his Hoosiers, this little tiny team from Milan, which at one time didn't even have enough players to put 5 on the floor. And then they make it to the championship game at Butler University, which for them was an enormous venue. That's a big-time college basketball place to play, leading Gene Hackman to have his players measure how far the basket was from the floor.
Measure this from the rim. Buddy? How far? 10 feet. 10 feet. I think you'll find it's exact same measurements as our gym back in Hickory. Okay, let's get dressed for practice.
So in the lead up to the game last week, or earlier this week, I guess, going into the game, Curt Cignetti, the incredible coach who's done this remarkable job with Indiana, was kind of saying the same thing. Not that the basket is 10 feet from the floor, but okay, it's Indiana. and it's Alabama. And we know the history of Alabama, but, that's not how our players are thinking here.
You know about the Bama mystique. How do you convince the players that you're playing this team, you're not playing all that tradition?
You probably know more about the mystique than they do. I mean, our guys just know what they see on tape.
Yeah, he says this is a football team. They happen to wear these colors. They happen to come from the state of Alabama, but this is how they look on tape, and this is how we look on tape, and this is how we match up, and this is how we're going to win the game. And I think this is not an accident that you look at now that they've played with the new playoff format in this round of games where you've got teams coming off byes. That is now 7 of 8. The team that didn't have the bye has won. And the one team that had the bye and won of those 8 games was Indiana, and they won it in a blowout, and they did it, I think, because of the coach. Because I think there's a natural tendency. It's not exactly like it used to be if you remember the Greyhound races. I went to them in Florida at one time where they have you bet on the Greyhounds, and the Greyhounds knew that they were going to run that day because they wouldn't get fed. Like they do that. So I think there's a natural thing in football players that if the season ends and like they go home for Christmas, that's it. That they're done until the following year. Like there's a mental switch that gets flicked. And I think the teams with byes, some of them didn't play for a month, right? And if you didn't play in a conference championship game, I think your mind automatically takes you to the off season. Okay, gonna let my body heal. Gonna go on vacation. I'm gonna spend some time with my family. And I don't think he let him do that. And if you listen to the news conference that he had before the game, particularly talking about Fernando Mendoza, who is everything you would want in terms of attitude, and he's also the Heisman Trophy winner. But you'll hear Cignetti here talking about what he's going to expect from Mendoza going into yesterday's game, and he doesn't even refer to the word Heisman. He says he won an award in New York. I mean, that is the award in college football. That's the award that stays with you the rest of your life. You are former Heisman Trophy winner, such and such. That is your legacy for the rest of your life, no matter what happens with the rest of your football career. And many of them become busts, they don't always work out. But he calls it a trophy in New York. Listen to this. This is Cignetti going into the game, what he's expecting of his quarterback.
I think it's really critical now, that he really developed a sharp edge in his preparation. And, don't play like, I'm the Heisman Trophy winner and I've got to do this or do that. Because we've all been following this game long enough to know we've seen some of those performances, right? And, Alabama's defense, I think, is a challenge, not only because they got great players and they play really hard and fast, but schematically they do some things to try to throw you off rhythm. And so we've got to go in with a good, sound plan. But at the end of the day, it's all about execution. Left tackle doing his job, running back, receiver, and Fernando being on point.
My mistake. He did refer to it as the Heisman Trophy. There was another cut that I had where he called it that trophy in New York. But, clearly it didn't go to his head, which is what, he's saying there. We've all seen performances like that. He doesn't have to play like a Heisman Trophy winner, meaning, hey, don't show off for the country here what you can do. Just, as they say, stay within yourself. So found that to be interesting. And then the game starts to play out. There's no score in the first quarter. But you can see that Indiana's starting to take control. They kick a field goal to begin the second quarter. And then by the end of the first half, this is becoming not a game anymore. And you don't really hear, because especially former players, they're really hesitant to use the word quit. And while Kirk Herbstreit doesn't use the word quit, he's dancing right to the edge of it as he's trying to explain just how inept and just how out of it the Alabama defense seems to be.
It feels like Alabama, it's just strange to see. They're just existing. They're just out there. Nobody's penetrating. Nobody's playing with any fire. They're just, it's almost like they feel defeated. Like there's nothing we can do. Nobody's making an impact player. not even trying to hands on their hips. They're just kind of out there.
Yeah, they took their will. And those are the kind of games that get coaches fired. That was the 4th loss of the year for Alabama. Maybe the job saver for Kalen DeBoer was that they came from 17 down to beat Oklahoma. Because if that were the first round game, you'd have people with for sale signs on Kalen DeBoer's lawn. That was just you just took it away from him, and it was the way they were able to control the line of scrimmage. Now you had a great game from Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza threw more touchdown passes than incompletions. He threw for almost 200 yards, but they ran it down their throats. And again, they controlled the clock. They just controlled the game, so much so that when it came time for the MVP, there was a stunner in this. This was Reese Davis announcing it and interviewing the winner on ESPN.
And now we want to introduce you to the MVPs from this game. Now, I know what you're thinking. Indiana's got a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. This is a guy who threw more touchdown passes today than incompletions, but he always spreads the wealth. He always spreads the wealth. And he talks about his teammates and his offensive line, and the offensive MVP from the 2026 Rose Bowl is Pat Coogan, the leader of the offensive line.
And they're mobbing him. They love this.
You played the national championship game last year with Notre Dame. Now you come here pursuing another one. What's this been like? How would you describe the secret sauce to giving this team success?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for showing out and making this Memorial West. These last 10 months have been the best months of my life, and I'm just so grateful for my teammates, Coach Cignetti for bringing me here, Coach Bostad for believing in me. These guys are fighters, and we got more to get done.
So we'll take a peek ahead. I talked to Sig about the fact that you guys have taken steps. Each moment seems to be the greatest in Indiana history, and there's still an opportunity for another one. What about the rematch with Oregon? Haven't had a chance to think about it much yet, but looking forward to a couple of great Big Ten teams squaring off.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great opponent, but we just got to take it day by day. We got to get back, fly back. We'll fly back, get back to work. It's going to be a great game, and we're excited to get out there, but we got to work and put the prep in.
I know you've been there less than a year. What do you think it means to these people? I had some of your fans saying that they would stop and laugh and then start to cry because they're so happy. What does that mean to you as a player?
It's unbelievable. Like the support of Hoosier Nation is something I've never seen before. I'm just so grateful for everybody. People have said to me after Oregon, after Ohio State, it's been the best days of their lives, but I promise you it's the best day of our lives winning this Rose Bowl. So thank you to everyone for showing out. This is unbelievable, and we got way more work to get done.
Think about this. Think how crazy this is. This is an Irish Catholic kid from the Midwest. He's from Illinois. He winds up at Notre Dame. He's there for 3 years. He's the starting center on a team that comes up just short of the national championship. They lose the national championship game last year, but he got there. His name is Patrick Coogan, playing center for Notre Dame. And he's there for 3 years. You play your senior year, and you never have to pay for a meal again in the Midwest, not just South Bend. But no. He's going to transfer to Indiana. I know it's right down the road, but that's a basketball school. What are you doing? Patrick Coogan, starting center, Notre Dame. This is like the name Leahy at Notre Dame, right? I mean, it's insane. And so he says it's the best he's had. Now, I don't know how this is going to work for the pros. I imagine he's going to be a draft pick and he can come out, but he only played a couple games his freshman year at Notre Dame, so he would have a year of eligibility if he wants it, because that would count as a redshirt year. But that is just and to think about that, and Reese Davis is 100% right. I mean, it would seem to be a slam dunk that you give the award to Fernando Mendoza. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. He plays an amazingly efficient game, as everybody else did. But he's throwing touchdown passes, 3 of them. And his team is just mauling this program, which is associated with college football. If you ask the average fan to name 3 teams, I bet he doesn't have to go more than 2 deep to name Alabama. And they beat the hell out of them. And now he's the MVP of the Rose Bowl in a game where the Heisman Trophy winner, who he was blocking for, played a tremendous game. I mean, it's hard to get your head around how insane this is. Some of it has to do with the new rules, but, you know, it's not like that Cignetti was hired from, you know, Ohio State and he's bringing the best of the best with him to go play at Indiana. He was at JMU, James Madison. The average college football fan may not even know it's in Virginia. They just, okay, JMU, and they were in the playoff this year for sure, but it was like, oh, JMU's in the playoff. They got kind of run over by Oregon, yeah, and they did. But here's Patrick Coogan from the Midwest, starting center, Notre Dame, as Bino Cook used to call it. And he transfers to Indiana to play there because and it's got to be Cignetti because, you know, for his personality, as you watch him on the sidelines, you might say to yourself, well, geez, he's not having any fun. And how can it be fun to play for him? He's obviously got great ability to recruit. He was the recruiting coordinator at Indiana. And it's not just his ability to recruit. It's his ability to identify who fits his program. It's like the great scene in Miracle where Kurt Russell as Herb Brooks is watching practice, and the assistant coach comes to him and he says to the assistant coach, he says, I got my team. He says, you picked the best players already? Because it was like supposed to be a 3-day tryout. He says, no, not the best players, the right players. And that's what he seems to have done. And nobody thought, oh, Fernando Mendoza, he's transferring from Cal to Indiana. Maybe he'll win the Heisman Trophy there. Nobody thought that. And even with the season they had last year with only 2 losses, this is absolutely incredible. So they move on to play Oregon, which will be on Friday night in the Peach Bowl. And the winner of that will play the winner of Ole Miss and Florida. And I don't think too many people had this as a Final Four. Maybe Indiana because they were the number one seed. But to think that it would play out like this, that they would be the only team with a first-round bye in the last 2 years to advance, and advance with a butt-kicking of a blue blood program in Alabama. It's just really a stunning thing. This was Scott Van Pelt, speaking to Stunned, talking to Dusty Dvorak, who is an analyst with ESPN. He did the Miami-Ohio State game on Friday night. And this is the two of them just sort of incredulous about what they're talking about.
They're the best team in football this year. You win in Oregon. You win in Indy against Ohio State. You beat Alabama like this. You're telling everybody that you're the best team in college football. Am I right? Is that the statement that they've made with what they've done today on top of what they've done this year?
They are the team to beat in this college football playoff. There is no question. And for me, it's the execution everywhere. Execution's a word that gets thrown around. But they block well. Everybody does their assignment right. They run hard. They're tough to tackle. They have a quarterback that is so precise with the football. Receivers that make catches and run great routes and block. The defensive line makes plays in the backfield. They get after the quarterback. When they get in their zone drops, everybody goes exactly where they're supposed to. And by the way, they're the most disciplined team in college football. One of the fewest penalized teams in the country. Number 1 in the country in turnover margin. What don't they do well, Scott? They do everything really, really good.
They turn you over. They don't commit penalties. You're going to have to beat them. But they're beating people senseless. And Alabama was on the wrong end of it. Here's Kalen DeBoer on how he plans to use the emotions his guys are feeling today to regroup for next season.
I know because I've been doing this long enough and I have experiences that I can fall back on, that the fine line between what we had out there today and being at the very top is such a fine line, and you got to go back to starting over from scratch with putting the people around you, the right people, and committing to something, a common goal together, and the actions following it. And so it's such a fine line. It may not feel like it when you're in this moment right now and what happened today, but I can tell you it's a fine line between being here and being at the top.
You earn a benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Clemson lived in that space for a long period of time, and you hold on to the belief that they're this. I thought they'd be a playoff team this year, and they weren't, obviously, Clemson. And so maybe it's become something different there. Is it in the process of becoming, you're losing the benefit of the doubt of Alabama, of what you were, because you're still obviously really good, but what are they right now today as constructed?
They've lost that Saban mystique, that team that strikes fear in the opponent before they ever play them. That's gone. No one fears this team anymore. Think about the way this season started. They got blown out against Florida State, and how this season ended. They got blown out against Georgia in the SEC championship, and they got absolutely annihilated today at the Rose Bowl. So nobody fears them. They've got to get back to being a physical, dominant team up front, because they're not.
Can't run the ball.
They cannot run the football. And to me, as Kalen DeBoer goes back, and he's a great coach, and he's going to do everything he can to get this program right. It has to start there. You cannot be that one-dimensional and expect to compete and play for championships. They've got to get back to that physicality. They've got to get back to finding that toughness up front along the offensive line, because this season they got talent, but it hasn't shown itself in games, and it's been puzzling to me to watch all season.
Look, it's been amazing in the portal and NIL era. Things can turn around quick. There's no guarantee they will. No greater example how quickly things can turn around. Indiana is singular. They are on their own level at the moment, and it allows so many other programs to catch up to a program like Alabama.
Yeah, but Alabama at the moment ain't Alabama anymore, and for sure Indiana ain't Indiana anymore now in the Final Four. Just amazing. Couple of quick things on the Commanders as they get ready to close out the season in Philadelphia on Sunday. That'll be a 4:25 kickoff. The line has moved. The Eagles now favored by 4.5, but who knows how many guys they're going to have on the field who are regulars as they rest up for the playoffs, and Commanders are down to nobody because of all the injuries. But now is the time of year, since there probably won't be a season-closing news conference, where you assess what went wrong. And for Kliff Kingsbury, it's just about everything.
Yeah, we just didn't get it done on any level, really, offensively. Our job is to score more points than them, and we did not do that no matter how we were trying to play. And so I think it's just looking at, hey, how do we get back on track and kind of maximize who we are, whoever's in here next year, who are we, and how do we, maximize the pieces we have?
Yeah, and a year that was supposed to be all about the next step for Jaden Daniels, he took a step backward because of injury, but also because when he played, he wasn't as good. Played 7 games, 2-5 as a starter, 60% completion this year versus 69% last year. His QBR this year, 45 as opposed to 68 last year. Touchdowns and interceptions, not too bad, but only 8 of them, and 3 interceptions. So as he looks back on 2025 for Jaden Daniels, Kingsbury assesses it this way.
Incomplete. Just how it went. It's an unfortunate part of our game. Those injuries occurred. But, his talent level, his appreciation for the game, work ethic, study habits, all those things were there. And it's unfortunate that he didn't get to show that on the field and continue to progress on the field. But he's a tremendous talent, tremendous person, player. So I know he'll learn from this and be better moving forward.
Moving forward, what would you want him to work on, and what can you take from what you saw to get better at X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The injuries just they happen. So I don't know if there's a way to be like, hey, you got to play a certain style or do this or do that. The last year he played in all 19 games, and so I think it's just more of continue to work at your craft and continue to be the leader you want to be, and all those things are going to take him to the next level and become the player and leader he wants to be. I don't think there's anything specific that I'm going to try and direct him, like techniques or fundamentals to playing the position. More so just if you go through the tough times and the tough games and the tough seasons, like, hey, continue to learn from that. And those are usually when you learn the most. So what did we learn and how can we improve from here?
Kliff, with Jaden is a young quarterback now that he's had success, but he's also seen the counters that they're going to. How does processing improve for young veterans as they continue to develop and grow as players?
Yeah, I think just the more you see, there's so many defensive schemes now. People are doing so much more than they used to in the past. I think the more reps on task you can get full speed, even at practice from your own defense, it just makes you better and better, and the game slows down. I've seen that with Marcus. Like just watching his style of play and the way he talks through plays and defenses and schemes and things like that. He's just seen so much Josh now too. They've seen so much when you talk to him. There's really nothing that they can throw at him that they haven't seen on some level, and I think that'll come with Jaden as well. But just time on task, as many reps as he can get, and continue to just work his tail off to be the best player he can be.
Is it important, because there'll be additions obviously to the receiver room, to the tight end room as the offseason goes, but is it important for Jaden to get with the guys that are going to be here going forward in a maybe non-official way during the offseason to kind of go over some things, just go through some reps, go through some film?
Yeah, I think that's big. I think you look at some of the all-time greats, like Brady would have those guys come up to Montana and run routes with their helmets on, and Pat has those guys down to Dallas with the Chiefs. So I think anytime you get that rapport, more time on task with those guys, the better off that they tend to play.
That's Kliff Kingsbury with the autopsy on the season and what we saw from Jaden Daniels this year, what has to change as they get ready for next year. Ram is coming up next. I will see you back here on Monday morning at 9 a.m.